Ready? Okay.
Ready? Okay, let's do it.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the September 24th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. Just acknowledge we're back in person here in the Wagner Room, so it's nice to be back. First tonight is to approve our minutes. To approve minutes for the September 7th meeting. Do I have a motion? Julie, second. Brendan, all in favor? Okay. Next is to review and approve the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion? Jen, second. Brendan, all in favor? Okay. Moving on. Comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone wishing to address the board? Okay.
David's checking to make sure there's nobody else.
Okay.
So let's give him a moment.
If anybody would like to email comments to the board tonight, you may do so at the NCPS BOE members at ncps-k12.org, and we will acknowledge those. Okay. All right. So moving on to reports and recognition. First up is our health program update, but Dr. Lutzy, would you like to introduce Mr. Adams?
I'm glad to, although I think I'll turn it over to Dr. Carenti as well. Mr. Adams, please, when you're ready, come on up. As you know, Jonathan has been working and coordinating our efforts in the health curricular program for a number of years now. And Dr. Carenti, I know you've worked with him specifically around the presentation and everything else.
Sure. So Jonathan Adams is our PE and health coordinator, for those of you who have not had an opportunity to meet him. This is Jonathan's 5th presentation to the Board of Education. 4 years ago, we created a district goal where we took a look at national health standards and created a crosswalk with the New Canaan Public School curriculum. We noticed many gap areas, and particularly at the elementary level, which prompted us to revise and then eventually implement health in grades 1 through 4. Jonathan was slated to give a presentation in March of last year, but for obvious reasons, that did not happen. And so this evening, Jonathan will be giving us an update on the 1920 district goals, because he hasn't had an opportunity to get the 2021 goals done yet, but he's working on it. So also last week when Jonathan was preparing for the presentation, we were not sure that we were going to be live. So he does have a screencastify that he will be sharing with all of us this evening and then be available to answer questions. So it'll be similar to what you saw Mrs. D'Amico do in the summertime. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jonathan.
Thank you. It's going to be quite a surreal experience to be watching you watch my presentation. Here we go. Good evening, New Canaan Board of Education. It is my pleasure to be back presenting another update on the continued work we've accomplished in health education. As we sit back and reflect on the world around us, we can agree that our health is important now more than ever, physically, socially, mentally, and emotionally. A quote that continues to resonate with me states, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, but rather learning how to dance in the rain." We have an amazing opportunity to educate our students on staying healthy and improving their health, even during a public health crisis. It is with great pleasure to share this health presentation with you tonight. Enjoy and be well. As we transition into the presentation, I would like you to think back of the previous updates I've provided. The hope is that you'll notice the continued growth and strides we've made in achieving the Board of Ed goals over the last 4 years. For some, you may notice a slide being revisited from the past, which will help to reinforce our vision and mission of health education for the New Canaan Public Schools. My gratitude and thanks goes to Dr. Lutzy, Dr. Carenti, Dr. Bianca, and the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to share this presentation with you tonight. This is work that we truly believe in and the meaningful impact it can have on our students here in New Canaan, now and in the future. This health education journey that we've been exploring, experimenting, and experiencing is not done alone. I might have the privilege of presenting to you, however, the execution of this work is done together, in the classroom, with their teachers. With that said, I would like to publicly acknowledge the continued efforts of our health education team. Jay Egan, Athletic Director and Wellness Coordinator, New Canaan High School health educators, Kim Palmer, Danny Melzer, Chris Silvestri, AJ Albano, and Kristen Woods. At Sachs Middle School, and also taught elementary health education, Christine Orlando and Mike Tisha. And at the elementary schools, Josh McDonald, Chris Sangali, and Timothy Stella. The overview and goals of the presentation is to visit and explain how we've met the district goals. I want to share the implementation plan that we've developed 4 years ago and where we are today. We're going to revisit the vision of health education and the importance of a skills-based model. I want you to gain a deeper understanding of the curriculum review process that I have experienced, which has resulted in strengthening, aligning, and designing our curriculum. I'm going to share what we've accomplished within our elementary health education and the feedback that teachers and elementary principals shared with us. We'll also dive a little deeper into the overview of the middle and high school experience. Here are the 2019-2020 district goals that we worked towards achieving last year. Throughout the presentation, you'll notice the steps we've taken to address each of these goals. The implementation process started 4 years ago when we identified gaps in our curriculum and planned to develop an aligned K-12 health education curriculum. I'm proud to say that the strides we've made have gotten us closer to that goal. Back in 2016-17, we began a curriculum crosswalk to identify those gaps. And in 2017 and 18, we piloted elementary lessons and gathered feedback from teachers and parents. In 2018 and 19, we were ready to start to deliver elementary health education in grades 3 and 4. Just this last year, grades 1 through 4 received elementary health education. We continue to make revisions to our 5 through 12 health curriculum to best align to the skills being addressed. And we did this because we noticed back in 2016-17 that elementary health ed was the biggest gap identified within our K-12 health education curriculum. We continue to work with colleagues to find through lines and blended experiences for students. And as health trends continue to change, we know that the skills will always be our foundation. Those of you on the Board of Ed that have seen my last 4 presentations can probably recite this next slide. This vision, we believe, is a significant one that will impact our students now and in the future. Students of New Canaan Public Schools will be equipped with the skills necessary to improve their health literacy, fostering the capability to make informed decisions in order to lead a healthy lifestyle. We continually to revisit this slide as it is our vision board and North Star. Our curriculum work involves alignment to the national health education standards and skills. And our first standard that we have are what we want students to know, our core concepts. And within a comprehensive health education curriculum, we know that the behaviors we want to promote, personal wellness, personal safety, and alcohol, tobacco, and other drug-free lifestyle, healthy eating and physical activity, mental and emotional health, healthy relationships, violence prevention, and disease prevention. But partnered with those concepts are the other 7 national health education standards, or what we like to know as our skills, what we want students to be able to do, to apply. Which means that the skills become the emphasis of the curriculum. Skill acquisition, the ability for students to acquire the skills with utility to enhance their health and the health of others, building their self-efficacy, leading to a healthier lifestyle, improving their health literacy. In practice, these skills become the units of instruction, and the topics or concepts become the context through which students learn and develop the skills. This produces and prepares students as critical thinkers and problem solvers, responsible and productive citizens, self-directed learners, and effective communicators. Research examining effective health education program reveals that skill development is a key element, and that the curriculum is designed that supports students' development of skill proficiency as the primary purpose of health education. When you think about the beginning of last year, the main topic of discussion in the media was ENDS, electronic nicotine delivery systems, JUUL. Now, given the world that we're living in and the health trends and behaviors that we need to focus on, we don't hear so much around electronic nicotine delivery systems and the way that it's impacted our youth. However, now it's about hand washing and social distancing. But we need to continue to reinforce and go back to what our foundation is so students can apply these skills of self-management and interpersonal communication and decision-making and analyzing the influences around them. As we strengthen our connections and we focus our curriculum work is developed best around health literacy for students. We continue to find the connections that strengthen and support our work that will generate a significant positive impact on students' health. The first being SAPL, our social, academic, and personal learning framework. Dr. Susan Bliss and myself are constantly working together connecting our work. The other being emotional intelligence and its relationship to one's health. You'll notice through the overview of units of students the connections we're making to emotional intelligence and providing students with direct teaching on the ruler skills on some of the grade levels. The other is digital literacy and the work that we see connections within digital citizenship that's happening across K-12. With these three connections always focusing with the whole child in mind, the student in mind, we feel confident that we're developing an effective curriculum for students. Here is the process that we've gone through in terms of gathering information and receiving feedback, as well as sharing what we're doing in the New Canaan Public Schools with all stakeholders. The process where we've engaged to get to where we are today begins with our health education team, our committee, where we analyze our curriculum and the health behavior among youth and the best practices, which we continue within our curriculum, which I like to call define it, design it, align it, and refine it. Over the past few years, we've had parent and teacher and administrator focus groups to gather feedback, listening to their voice on what's important to them relative to student health. After the committee has designed areas of the curriculum, it is then presented to the Curriculum Leadership Council, where the most in-depth questions are posed as all the curriculum leaders use their expertise to analyze the work that will impact our students. We gain that feedback, and then we start to deliver that instruction to our students, constantly and always refining our curriculum. Lastly, we present to stakeholders what we are teaching, how we are teaching, and when we are teaching it, so that they can use the information to reinforce these skills within their children as they see fit. This is the 5th board presentation, and we've done 3 parent presentations, and just last year alone I presented to community organizations, New Canaan Cares, the Rams Council, the Lower Fairfield Regional Action Council, the New Canaan Coalition, and the Recovery Friendly Community Group on the work we're doing in the New Canaan schools relative to health education, so that together we can maintain and improve the health of our student population now and in the future. The next slide shares a short video that we created for the parents, elementary teachers, and students when we were about to embark upon our elementary health education journey at the start of last year.
Here's a story of a team of teachers who are rolling out some important healthy facts. All these lessons that they hold grow from each other, words to kids impact. Here's a story of the rollout process and the lessons in the classrooms 1 to 4. Our health team is working hard together to help kids learn more. We have grades 1 and 2 learn to communicate, and 4th grade learning to analyze. 3rd grade students are making great decisions. That's the way that we can live our healthy lives. The health ed bunch, the health ed bunch. That's the way that we can learn from the health ed bunch.
#SkillsBuildHealth has been coined by our health education team and been shared many times on Twitter. Knowing that we did not get to complete the year in person, this was a tweet that I sent out April 2nd that states, "Who would have thought that when the Health Ed Bunch created the hype video for elementary health ed at the beginning of the school year, that we would be communicating the same way today?" And in the bottom right corner, you see us on a Zoom call. I guess the Brady Bunch really knew a thing or two about Zoom before we did. Just to quickly revisit the slide, as you will notice the skills and concepts being reinforced as I continue to present some examples of what takes place at each grade level. At this time, I would like you to refer to the appendix that we provided, which will include the concepts, skills, and essential questions that students think critically about at each grade level. At the top of the slide, you will notice the concepts in green. In first and second grade, we focused on mental emotional health while teaching the skill in yellow of interpersonal communication. In third grade, personal safety and decision making, and in fourth grade, personal wellness and drug awareness and prevention, with the skill being analyzing influences. At the elementary level, we plan to teach 10 lessons throughout the course of the year, and in every lesson there's an aspect of that specific skill students learn and practice. In grades 1 and 2, students were introduced to different interpersonal communication skills and strategies. They learned body language and tone of voice and how their mental and emotional health can impact the way we communicate with ourselves and others. Throughout the lesson, students practice effective listening skills and clear, assertive communication skills. Conflict resolution is another strategy that was taught as students understand the importance of fairness when working to resolve a conflict and the realization they may not always get everything they want. So we purposefully put students in conflicting situations so they can practice and get feedback on how to best resolve it by using all the indicators of effective communication. You may recall in previous presentations the great decision-making model and the steps we take to teach this skill. In third grade, students take time to think critically about how everyday decisions can affect one's health. As they consider the bigger picture when making decisions, they become empowered to take ownership of their own health by making decisions that support healthy outcomes. Students begin to apply the great decision-making model as it pertains to their safety. They learn to identify, avoid, and prevent unsafe situations, which is an important step towards safety. And then students start to identify what feelings and emotions tell them that a situation is unsafe. We may use tools like the mood meter to help them identify feelings both within themselves and characters in a book. Throughout the unit, students apply the great decision-making model within several health scenarios. And it is amazing to witness as they understand the value of developing the skill of decision-making as they will sort through problems, brainstorm options, identify the positive and negative outcomes, and then implement and reflect on the decisions they make. In fourth grade, students start to build upon the skill of analyzing influences as we reinforce personal wellness and introduce drug awareness and prevention. They will expand on their learning and start to think critically on how the actions of the external and internal influences around them could have a positive or negative impact on the decisions and overall health. We have students create a web of influences where they analyze the positive and negative outcomes on a particular health behavior and how these influences can shape the decisions they make. Lastly, students gain an understanding of how to analyze negative influences in a situation so they can avoid risky behaviors. We introduce drug awareness and prevention in fourth grade as they begin to learn those negative peer and media influences that surround them. Throughout the elementary health education implementation process, we worked with elementary teachers to continue to gain feedback as the year progressed. The elementary teachers had nothing but a positive feedback to give us as teachers and the experience that students were receiving. We look forward to continuing this practice as the years progress. Moving into middle school, I presented previously on 5th grade. You remember, the puberty classes, always the best time of year. Actually, come to think of it, during that presentation, I showed a 5th grade example of a public service announcement on common sense ways to be healthy, where they presented on the importance of hand washing. Isn't it interesting how relevant that public service announcement is today? Anyway, during 5th grade, students continue to build their interpersonal communication and self-management skills during the personal wellness and personal safety units. Over the past 2 years, we continue to build upon the units being previously taught at the elementary level. It has actually been amazing to witness the relationships between the students and their middle school health teachers grow. Miss Orlando and Mr. Tisha both taught at the elementary schools last year, and usually the elementary students would be meeting their health teacher for the first time in 5th grade. But now they've already developed a relationship with the teacher and get to see a familiar face at SACS when they enter as an incoming SACS Hawk. Students in 6th grade build upon the skills of decision-making, analyzing influences, and self-management. We revisit drug awareness and prevention, where students begin to understand the risks involved with vaping, alcohol use, and drug misuse. Beginning these lessons as early as 4th grade helps students become more comfortable learning about these risks and results in a lesser likelihood that they will experiment with these drugs as they get older. Students learn ways to build their confidence and self-esteem while at the same time applying emotional intelligence skills of ruler to manage their emotions when confronted with a risky situation or decision. 7th grade takes focus on students' mental and emotional health. You might find students at the beginning and the last few minutes of health class taking time to relax their mind through progressive relaxation techniques, breathing techniques, and guided visualizations to help set their mind for the class and the rest of the day. Students tell us that it is their favorite part of their day, just being able to take a few minutes to calm the mind and feel relaxed. 8th grade students start to mold all the skills previously learned of decision-making and analyzing influences through drug awareness and prevention. Students in 8th grade truly have the perception that more teenagers are using alcohol, marijuana, and vaping than actually are. This false perception influences decisions they can have later in life, and it's our job to help them analyze those influences and focus on the majority of youth who aren't using those drugs, so they can make those decisions that generate positive health outcomes. Students work on advocating for themselves to be drug-free as they think about the road ahead of them. Our hope for our 8th grade students is that they can use those skills and knowledge they have acquired to be in the majority who choose to be drug-free. During the last few years, our high school health education team has been revising and aligning the curriculum. They have engaged in several professional development opportunities that have aided in the curriculum revision process. They have all participated in the emotional intelligence training at Yale, and just last year received instructor-level certification in first aid and CPR through the American Red Cross, so they can certify our 11th grade students in these important life-saving skills. As freshmen, an emphasis is placed on students to accept responsibility for their mental and emotional health. Students learn and practice a variety of health-enhancing behaviors designed to increase their emotional intelligence. Students learn the emotional intelligence skills to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate their emotions. When adolescents are exposed to repeated stressful events without the tools to manage emotions, stress can become emotionally and physically unhealthy. So we expose students to a variety of self-management skills related to emotional intelligence, which is shown to improve mood, boost immune function, promote longevity, improve productivity, and build healthy relationships. Students gain a deeper understanding of the mind-body relationship and learn to employ effective cognitive techniques, coping skills, and relaxation techniques. Through the course of the semester, students further develop effective interpersonal communication skills that will help generate positive relationships with peers and others to enhance their health. Students will begin to gain an understanding of healthy relationships and learn to recognize the signs of an unhealthy or abusive relationship. Research tells us that every day millions of people in the United States are affected by violence. 1 in 3 adolescents is a victim of emotional, physical, or sexual abuse from a dating partner. Students become familiar with what domestic and dating violence is, who it affects, and how to access reliable resources for help. Students learn strategies to prevent, manage, or resolve interpersonal conflicts safely and effectively. And they also consider how they use social networking media and how different networking forms, email, websites, instant messaging, and text messaging, shape how we communicate with each other and the relationships that we develop as young adolescents. In 10th grade, the focus is on decision-making through drug awareness and prevention. As students become more susceptible to impulsive, risky behavior, they gain valuable feedback as they practice effective and authentic decision-making skills during class. As students learn to analyze the internal and external influences around the pressures to use drugs, this enables and empowers them to make great decisions that support an overall healthy lifestyle. If you walked around the high school last year, you may have noticed some of the positive public service announcements that our 10th grade health students promoted around the building. They were in the hallways, the bathrooms, and even on the high school TVs, promoting a drug-free life. Now, as we were looking forward to implement the 11th grade curriculum in the spring, we were unfortunately shut down due to the pandemic. Our plan this year is to continue that work we've done and use any safety modifications we need to in order to deliver the First Aid and CPR unit, as well as another unit titled Wellness Beyond High School, which focuses on students developing a vision for themselves as they reflect on where they want to be in the short and long term, utilizing the skill of goal setting and working to map out that plan for themselves. And lastly, senior year is and has been focused on the Senior Independence Study, where students access information regarding a wellness issue that is interesting to them or maybe a topic that had some effect on their family, friends, or their personal wellness. In this class, students begin to distinguish between fact, opinion, and misinformation, and how to integrate research and opinion into an effective presentation. Students critically think, problem solve, and self-direct their learning and provide effective communication during these presentations. Taking responsibility for one's health and knowing how to access valid health information, products, and services is an essential step towards developing and maintaining a healthy and active lifestyle, which is exactly what we want our seniors leaving health class with. And our teachers are always impressed by the students' end of the year Senior Independent Study result. Through the health education curriculum, we are constantly aligning our work to meet state mandates. Here under Healthy Relationships, we know that most successful prevention programs encourage effective communication and decision-making skills. They build empathy and an understanding of respectful and healthy relationships. And it's recommended to begin talking at an early age in order to build a foundation for healthy relationships, which is why we continue to keep the parents updated and include all the lessons and materials we use pertaining to this topic with them. As you can see, we have come a long way in 4 years with the continued growth and implementation of our elementary health curriculum, and our consistent and persistent commitment to this work that we know is so meaningful for the health of our students' lives. As we continue the journey this year, we're planning to meet the 2020-21 district goals. We plan to expand the elementary health program to the kindergarten level, meeting the goal of ultimately having the K-12 health curriculum in New Canaan. We'll continue to evaluate the health schedule at the elementary, middle, and high school to explore the best models of scheduling and instruction that we can. We'll continue to communicate with parents and the community regarding our program, and I look forward to our continued partnership with the community organizations to best educate stakeholders on health topics, but also working together to provide the best experience for our students. I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to present tonight and leave you with a quote that states, "Wellness is a journey, not a destination, and we must continue this pursuit for the rest of our life." Thank you, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments? Brendan?
That was excellent. It's obviously really important given what we're dealing with now. But have you noticed or have you communicated with any of our teachers just around how to incorporate COVID or anything along those lines into the curriculum? Have you noticed? I've certainly noticed just generally, but kids having a better sense as to the key kind of health issues in their own lives, just given what we're going through. But any thoughts on that?
Yep. So interesting is that one of the things that we did this professional development at the beginning of this year was knew that that was going to be an important topic to bring up in the class. Knowing that we have the skills as our foundation, we can really weave in any health topic or health behavior that needs to be, as long as we continue to focus on those skills. So we generated the essential question, which you could see here, is how can my community and I stay healthy during a public health crisis? And one of the things that we really wanted to focus on were some of the positive aspects of that. So building resiliency, building empathy around everyone's situation that is different related to the pandemic. understanding that in 5th grade, we could build upon how we teach about a healthy immune system and what it means and what just regular day-to-day behaviors we need to do to have a healthy immune system. But then continuing those lessons, so we've generated about 2 to 4 lessons between each grade level in order to hit upon living during a public health crisis and kind of what that means, but fostering those skills that we know we want to touch upon.
Great, thank you.
I had, oh, go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was such a great presentation, and it is such an important topic, and clearly we've known that for quite a long time because we've had this amazing program in place, and it just gets better every year. And just thank you so much for your team and your teachers and everything because it's really important and it's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had just a couple of questions as well. Thank you. It was a very comprehensive presentation. I love that you're reaching out and working with the state, like local community organizations. I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit more about that, or maybe a few examples of either how we've sort of partnered with an organization to either, offer information or to take feedback or information to, as you develop, our curriculum.
Sure. So one of the first organizations that I was working with even as a teacher was New Canaan Cares at first, and partnering with that organization to help kind of complement our curriculum and the work that they do within the community. So one example that we have done in the past and is we've used the Leadership Coalition of New Canaan Cares, those students that are there, and they have come into our health classes and done presentations based on some of the health topics that they found important as high school students. So that's one example. Another example that happened last year as I was actually working with the Girl Scouts of America here in New Canaan too on a public service announcement that they wanted to promote, a project that they wanted to do, I believe, and don't quote me on this, to get some type of blue ribbon award or something for Girl Scouts, but they wanted to do it around drug awareness and prevention, juuling. And so I worked with them and attended several meetings with them, as well as some of the counselors at Sachs Middle School to kind of help move their project along. And following that, Rams Council, we did a presentation with them, but then they came back and did a presentation for us with also First Selectman Monahan there as well too, to kind of just share the work that they're doing within drug awareness and prevention too. I constantly, Dr. Susan Bliss, myself, we go and attend the town meetings with the New Canaan Coalition, where we just hear other stakeholders just kind of present on certain health topics around the town, and then how we can kind of help to complement that and work together in order to meet those goals.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And then I had a question on the grade 11 curriculum. So you mentioned the CPR. Do the students actually have the opportunity to be certified?
So last year, we were able to provide professional development for our high school teachers to enhance their level of certification, which gives them an instructor certification, which would allow them to be able to hold the course and certify really anyone as long as they go through that course. And that was going to be for our 11th grade students. We were literally a week away before implementing that, and then we couldn't offer CPR given the situation. Yeah. So we had to kind of revisit that, and we're looking forward to doing that. Even the American Red Cross had to stop their training that they were doing on a nationwide level, and they also offered a 120-day extension on certifications for people that needed to renew their certification because they couldn't even hold classes and offer that instruction as well. So, but yes, we would be able to, at the end of that 11th grade quarter that they would experience, they would be able to then take an exam to have that certification, be able to utilize that, whether through something outside of school, whether it be babysitting or lifeguarding or something else that they can apply it with as well too.
Great. And then I just had one other, I guess, question or comment, and it sort of piggybacks on what Brendan was saying. Just in light of the times that we're in, how are you aligning or constantly reviewing the curriculum at different grade levels and touch points to be sure that you're comfortable with what's really happening in terms of the social emotional needs of our students and what you're seeing, and feedback you might be getting about, what the touch points might be with our kids and what they need to hear most, or what other opportunities there may be for providing additional supports this year.
A lot of the times when we look at health curriculum too, we don't want to always stigmatize the negative health behaviors, right? We want to promote the positive behaviors that can come out of the experience in the classroom. So knowing that and knowing some of the areas that we're focusing on, especially from a skills-based perspective, and if we take a look at the table that you could see there, and just one example is that you'll see almost in every other grade we're hitting upon that topic, but also within another skill that then we reinforce. So in terms of the mental and emotional health needs of our students, we knew even early as first and second grade, just to start to begin that foundation there, utilizing a lot of the skills of emotional intelligence, and by promoting these positive health behaviors, they're overall going to combat the negative ones that we will see.
Yep, makes sense. All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great.
Next on our agenda is an update on COVID-19. Dr. Letzi.
Sure. I will run through a couple of things and then turn it over to Dr. Keating to run through some of the financial piece as well. But I thought we would talk a little bit. As you are aware, we did experience we were notified of our first positive case of COVID at the high school yesterday. We worked, thanks to Janet Reed, who did a great job, and Jen Eilson at the health department, who was available the whole time, worked with us hand in hand right through all of it. We did the contact tracing required, went through and notified folks, put a letter out to the community, and really in that letter focused on the need for us to be notified as soon as possible when families are aware of a positive case, so that we can go through that process and do what we have to do in the goal to make sure our schools are safe and keep them open, as long as we can. So as soon as that notification went out, a few minutes later, we were notified of a second case. And we're grateful that that person notified us as well. And again, we ran through our protocols and a contact tracing and did what needed to be done there. We are in an environment now across the state, across the country, where positive cases are going to appear. So it's sort of that planning that we spent the summer doing really is paying off now as we work through these protocols and do the right things, always prioritizing health and safety, but really striving to make sure that folks are notified, that we identify those impacted, we isolate them through quarantine, and we contain the spread of the virus, because it is all about containing that spread. How we arrive at our decisions really flows from Addendum 5 from the State Department of Education and the Department of Public Health. It's linked directly on our website, and really it speaks to the definition of close contact and the steps that we take as a result of folks who may be a close contact, or if somebody is symptomatic. And I would encourage anybody to go to our website to take a look at Addendum 5. The key with it is, and one of the confusing parts I think for many people is, if a person is a close contact with a known positive case, and close contact is defined as 6 feet or closer for 15 minutes or longer, then that person who's a direct contact would need to quarantine. A person who's a close contact of a close contact does not need to quarantine. It's only a 1 degree of separation from a known positive case. So there were some questions that came today from families who maybe a high school student had received notification of quarantine because of the positive cases we have. And they were asking if the rest of the family needs to quarantine as well. And they don't, according to the CDC's guidance and the State Department of Ed's guidance. Again, it's once removed from a known positive case. Now, of course, we continue in the system where if a family feels it's best for them, they can move to remote learning, and they can do that full time instead of coming back in. And I'll talk in a moment about our K-2 reentry and all the pieces around that too. But it's important to know this is the strategies that are being implemented here have been vetted through the CDC, through the DPH and others, and we use that as a guide. And there is some certainly leaning on the expertise of Janet Reed, who's our district nursing supervisor, of Harrison Pierce, who's our district medical advisor, of Jen in the health department, who's been doing this. So we use Addendum 5 to guide us. And then, there's always some nuances to every situation that we have to work through as well. But I want to say that everyone involved jumped right into it yesterday. They gave up their Sunday to do everything we had to do in order to be sure that we could open our school for everybody today at the high school. And I want to encourage people, if they are notified of a positive case, to let us know immediately so that we can begin that process and take care of what needs to be taken care of. And again, keep our schools safe and work to try to keep them open. There may be a time where we get notification and we don't have time to do the tracing that's required. And if we have to close the school for a day or in order to do that work, so be it. But we want to make sure that we know so that we can immediately spring into action. Let's see. I guess another important thing I just want to share is, it's a challenging environment for people, and it's challenging if somebody is diagnosed positive and they give us that information. We have to act upon that. And while we certainly recognize that people don't want to be responsible for others having to go into quarantine, we also want to make sure they recognize and understand that we're doing all of this to contain the spread and to maintain the health and safety of our school, of our community, of everybody. This is a highly contagious disease, and it's nobody's failure if they're testing positive. It's a highly contagious disease, and they were in an area where they picked it up. So know that there's no value judgment to this whatsoever. By notifying us, we can then take the appropriate steps. And of course, we would protect the confidentiality of the individuals involved. So that people may receive an email that says that they'll have to quarantine with instructions around doing that. We don't say who the positive case is because we protect people's privacy in this, and we have to, and it's important to do so. So I met with high school staff today after school, and we talked things through, and they understood everything that's happening and felt confident that we've taken the appropriate steps, and we've been communicating with parents and others that are impacted right through this today, and we'll continue having those conversations tomorrow. Again, we're in a global pandemic, and there are going to be positive cases, and when they do show up, we want to make sure that we work through the process and prioritize health and safety and do the right things. React appropriately. We don't want to overreact or underreact, but work through the protocols that we spent the summer kind of setting up and understanding and working collaboratively through that. So I'm proud of how everybody responded and grateful that the news came forward. And I encourage anybody who's interested to go to our website, charting our course for we have a COVID dashboard right there that has numbers of known positives, numbers of folks in quarantine for both students and staff at each of our 5 buildings. So we started that over a week ago, and we're going to continue to update that as frequently as necessary so people have updated information. Okay. Now, on the good news side, our K2 students returned today. So we went from the 50% for first and second grade and the half day for kindergarten to a full day in for all students, kindergarten through second grade. And in our conversations with our principals after school, the kids were thrilled to be back together. They were very excited. There was a lot of positive kid energy, I think I heard from all 3 of our principals in the building. And they meant that in all good ways. Arrival was a little challenging. Dismissal was a lot challenging. And so they're continuing to work through some of the nuts and bolts of that. As you can imagine, South is a little bit easier than the other 2 because they have so many walkers. So they're able to get that dismissal going. But East and West, they have some things to try to figure out to speed that up. The buses were running okay. It's really the pickup, right? The parent pickup lines and the time it takes to move those through. So we've gotten good at doing it with 50%. Now it's going to take us a little time to get good at doing it with 100%. And we'll keep working with the New Canaan Police Department to do that. But it was very positive. The kids felt great. We've got some anxious teachers, as you can imagine. They've gotten accustomed and they've been working with 50% of the students in the class at a time. And moving to a full in this environment is a little tricky. But they really stepped up. And once the kids showed up, just as we expected, they were happy, they were engaged, they worked through, they were just thrilled to see all their kids. Because as you know, running in a hybrid where half are at home and half are in school, X and Y don't see each other in the room. They have not been in the room at the same time on the same day since we opened school. So teachers have been feeling like they've sort of got two classes in different groups, and finally they're able to bring those kids together and have one, unified class, and that really made a big difference for them. I just want to take a moment while I'm going through this to thank all of our teachers. Like, again, from everything that happened this morning at the elementary schools, everything going on at Saks, the conversations I had at the high school, we are so fortunate to have a group of dedicated professionals who just respond to the call every time they're asked. And they have done nothing but work tirelessly and connect with their students to keep them engaged, no matter if they're in person or remote, doing everything that they can possibly do to meet our goals as a school district and to continue to provide a world-class education. And really, it's made all the difference. We're incredibly fortunate here in New Canaan to have amazing professionals, a great relationship with the union leadership and others involved. And that culture that permeates our district really flows from the kids to the teachers all together and creates a positive spirit, a can-do spirit that really makes all the difference. We really, throughout this and throughout all these challenges, we continue to maintain our core values and philosophy and culture of sort of a lead with yes kind of approach that really benefits our kids and our families. So I just want to take a moment to thank all of our teachers and the leadership there and everything that everyone's doing. They really, that's where the rubber hits the road in the classroom with the teachers and the kids. And they've stepped up and they've really answered the call on our kids' behalf, and they deserve all the credit in the world. The mitigation strategies that we have in our schools are working. They continue to. One of the things that the teachers shared today and the principals shared with us was that having 50% of the kids really made a difference in learning those strategies. So today, with everybody back, they were nervous because they thought maybe they'd forget everything they've learned and go back to the way it was before when they were all together. But that wasn't the case at all. The kids were following social distancing. They were, of course, wearing their masks. They continued to implement the strategies that we spent the time teaching them. So I think we chalk another one up to our onboarding plan and the strategy we've used to get our schools open, because the kids really know those strategies now and they know how to apply them. And teachers aren't spending all of their time just trying to correct those little things. Instead, they're teaching, they're engaged, and they're building the community in the classroom. So that's gone very well. We're looking forward in the next couple of days to reintegrate our 3rd and 4th grade as well. So we'll do another 2 days with our K2. And then on Thursday, we're looking to bring back 3rd and 4th, which would be all of our, of course, all of our elementary kids. So K4 at that point would be back in. And we've had a couple of parents reach out and make the decision to shift to remote learning with us going full in. And that's perfectly understandable, and we tell them that that's why the system exists the way that it does. And if they're uncomfortable being fully in, maybe somebody in the household is immunocompromised, maybe there's something else, then that's why we created the system that we did, so that they can make that decision that's best for them and their families. As we look forward up into Saks, we're continuing to have conversations about the best approach for reentry there at Saks. As you know, the older students get, the better the distance learning works for them, and we're keeping that in mind. And I'll talk in a moment about sort of what we've learned from the high school experience just in these last 24, 48 hours. But we're looking at Saks and thinking about what's the best reentry plan, recognizing that when we do 3 grades at the elementary, it's the same number of kids as 1 grade over at Saks. So we're thinking about what's the best way and how to do it so that our students move into a building, and it's a very large building over there too, but move into the building continuing to use those mitigation strategies and what have you. And we'll look at scheduling a reopen committee for the board members that are on that committee sometime, probably Wednesday morning if we can. So I'll reach out and let you know and see what we can get scheduled to do that. At the high school, the hybrid is working well as also. Because we're in that hybrid, when we had these positive cases, the contact tracing in the school becomes much simpler, to be honest with you, much easier. Because with the hybrid and 50% of our students were able to maintain the social distancing in most cases, where we don't have to look at classrooms going out. We can look at the desk arrangement in a room. We look to see if they have the appropriate distance. If they don't, then we do have to do some quarantining of kids that might be sitting around a known positive case. But we're not in a situation where we have to put a whole room out. And with the hybrid running at the high school, it also helps our teachers because they have half the kids. They're able to maintain that distance and not become close contacts with their kids. So that's been beneficial at the high school. And again, we're going to continue to look at it. A difference is, of course, at the elementary level, it's remembering that close contact is both proximity and duration, right? So it's 6 feet or less for 15 minutes or more. But in an elementary classroom, the kids are in the room the whole day, and the teacher is with them the majority of the time. So there, your contact definition changes a bit, and what patterns that have been emerging around the state have been at the elementary level. When you have a self-contained classroom, if there's a known positive in the room, all the students in that room may be quarantined along with the teacher that's in that room, just because they're together for that long of a period of time each day. Again, once the kids start changing classes, specifically, or especially at the high school, it's different because they don't have that duration. And so as long as they're able to maintain the proximity, the quarantining can be different. In these cases that we've had in the last 2 days, what we're seeing is that they've all been in high school. Not too many close contacts in high school. Maybe the friends they sat with at lunch on a given day, maybe in a couple of classrooms, depending on the setup. Many more students are being quarantined because of extracurricular activities, because of participation in youth sports. And so, there's the contact tracing that is a part of that. Is challenging, but again, with the cooperation of the families and others involved, we're able to follow up on that quickly and take care of it. The sports in the school, to take a moment to talk about that. We're continuing forward with all of our sports except football at this point. There are mitigation strategies for all of them, right? The volleyball is wearing a mask on the court. Penny had said this weeks ago. If only people had listened to Penny, we could have been up and running on this a long time ago. But other sports have other mitigation strategies that are in place, and we're looking forward to beginning competition with with our kids on October 1st is when all that's going to begin. So the teams have been coming together, using their mitigation strategies, practicing and getting ready to play. Football has been a challenging situation, as you know. The Department of Public Health continues to categorize full contact 11 versus 11 football as a high risk activity. And as such, they're advising schools against it. And as the CIAC has asked them since July, about this and gotten the same response for the most part. So just last week, CIAC published its position that it is not sanctioning full contact 11 on 11 football for this school year because of that high risk categorization by the DPH. Continue looking at that and looking at the feedback from the DPH. The DPH does look at 7 versus 7 non-contact skills type, football as a medium risk activity, and thereby doesn't advise against it, right? So, we've been working with this. Jay Egan deserves an awful lot of credit for the conversations he's been having and the work he's been doing. We're disappointed in the DPH's categorization of full contact football as a high risk activity. But as I understand it, that's essentially what's happening nationally. And in the states that they're playing football, they're doing so against the recommendation of their Department of Public Health. We did what we could. We had the conversations that we could have. Again, Jay has been very, very active at the state level, at the local level. But in thinking about things and understanding the situation and having to make some decisions, because really it's been so unfair for our kids. I think we've gone since July having conversations and not making decisions for them. And that's really been unfair. And that we've got to do better than that as adults. And I've certainly shared feedback with those that needed it on my feelings about how this process has unfolded and how it's been mishandled, I think, on behalf of our kids. So as we think about that, and I think it's our responsibility here as a district to move forward with something for our kids. But in our thinking about it all, we've got to always recall, keeping foremost in our mind that the Department of Public Health is the statewide authority on public health. And if they're recommending against playing, it's based on what is best for public health as determined by people who've spent their lives thinking about studying, resolving issues of public health. And that, the epidemiologists involved, the others involved and I'm on a subcommittee with them. Fortunately, again, every Monday I have a meeting just before our meeting as we go through things, and I just got off of that prior to this. Some of them played college sports. Some of them are athletes. So this is not a bias for or against sports, right? This is about these activities and the pandemic. So just keeping in mind, that piece. Keeping in mind also that our school reopening plans across the board really hinge upon a couple of things: the continued positive trends in public health, the implementation of our mitigation strategies across the schools, and in truth, the confidence that the parents, teachers, staff, and the entire community have in our efforts to keep our schools safe by, in large part, following the DPH guidelines. That's been our goal. We've worked on this since the day we closed. We've used DPH guidelines to help inform us of what we're doing. Look around our schools, travel around, you'll see all of their recommendations, from ventilation that you don't see to masks, to plexiglass, to other things. DPH has really been an important partner and guide in all of this. So as a result of all of that, and what we're working on is, unfortunately, we're not going to be offering any high-risk, unsanctioned activities here in the district. We just don't feel that it's appropriate to go against the Department of Public Health, especially in the midst of a pandemic. And so, unfortunately, that includes full contact 11 versus 11 football. However, we are working throughout the FCAC with other schools, and Jay has been all over this, as have some other athletic directors. They've been working on it for weeks, because as we saw this kind of back and forth with the CIAC and the Department of Public Health and the non-decision, weeks ago, Jay and I said to each other, let's get going on something. Let's talk to people and at least get something ready. If we don't have to use it, fine, but at least provide an opportunity for our kids. So thanks to Jay's really good work on this and his work across the conference, the FCAC, and even conversations at the state level, we're developing a 7-on-7 football intramural league, and including in that like lineman's challenge type activities, and maybe even lineman 7-on-7 kinds of things. That is aligned with DPH recommendations, because the 7-on-7 that's non-contact brings it from a high-risk activity to a moderate-risk activity, which is the same as some of the other sports that we're playing now with the mitigation strategies, like volleyball with masks, for instance. So the league would use our district coaches, have teams of approximately 15 players, and they would play against each other in the beginning, and even against other schools. And there's a whole schedule being worked out, again, across the FCAC, with us and some of our rivals and some other schools to be able to play. May even be able to play on Friday nights under the lights and try to make this as much as positive an experience for our kids as possible. And what it does, it keeps us aligned with the recommendations of the DPH. And I think that's so crucial to what we're doing. In part, that helps to protect our plans to keep our schools open, to continue to reopen things at different levels as appropriate. It maintains the trust we've established with our teachers, with our staff, with the community, that we're prioritizing public health and safety. But equally importantly, maybe, certainly very importantly, it provides our students something meaningful to do. It's still a skill-building activity. It keeps our coaches working with our kids. It keeps them learning and growing. The kids will progress in their football skills. We have opportunities for our varsity coaches, all of our coaches, to work with these teams in the 7-on-7 type league, where they'll continue to build their skills, continue to learn, the game of football. And it gives us something meaningful, memorable, and fun for our kids to do. It's not the same. But from the beginning, we've said our goal is not to create a pale replica of what was lost, but working within the bounds, create something new and meaningful and memorable for our kids. May give them an experience that's totally and uniquely their own. And we think that this will do that. As we looked at every option, we really thought about this from every angle. We've got great partners in all of these conversations and discussions and considerations. Again, Jay has been so great in all of it. But as you know, from the start, this has not ever been for us a football question. We love football. I talk about Clemson Tigers to anyone who will listen. We played football. It's a part of our lives. We do. But this has never been a football question. It's always been a question about the guidance from the Department of Public Health and whether or not we would follow that guidance. And as we look at it, Look at all of what we're doing. Look at the enormity of the responsibilities placed on us. We're going to continue following the guidance of the Department of Public Health. We'll work out the details with the FCAC around this league and the opportunities that are there. And we'll definitely give updates to the board, to the community and others as this comes together. It's not going to be traditional football, but it's our goal to make it something that our kids enjoy, benefit from, and keep them connected to the sport that they love, the coaches that they love and learn from, and their teammates as much as we can. So that's our plan around football. It's been tough, but again, Jay has done a great job. Bill Egan has been right there in all the conversations as well, and I'm confident that what we're doing is going to be, it'll provide a meaningful and memorable experience for our kids. And we've got about 140 kids typically who play football. So it's really important for us to get this off the ground because we want to make sure we have something for them to do at the end of each day. With that, a longer update, I apologize, but I'm happy to turn it over to Dr. Keating or see if there are any questions about anything that I covered first, and then do that, whatever's best for you.
Deanna, and then Bob.
So just a quick question on the 7-on-7 football. So
Sure.
when does the athletic department or the coaches envision those games or, I'm guessing October 1st is a little early for that, but maybe not. I don't
Our kids have been practicing, right? They've been doing other things all within the bounds of the DPH guidelines. So our goal would be that it would mirror the fall season. So we'd get 6-8 weeks of some practice, some games, and be able to play. It's different. The conditioning's different because you're not full contact. So if we were full contact, you need some time, full pads to hit and to get used to, that and get acclimated to it. So I think we can get up and running pretty quickly once the bones of it are all figured out. And true, I imagine Jay's probably working on it right now. I mean, he's been, consumed by this. And I hope in the next day or two we'll be able to share with you kind of the schedule and some more specifics. But the idea is it would mirror that fall season. So we'll go right up through probably mid-November.
Bob?
Are there any other districts playing 11-11?
Not that I'm aware of, no. It's certainly the FCAC, and I speak with my colleague superintendents. Every Friday we have an hour or so that we talk together. And, the conversation was, as you can imagine, a lot about this just Friday. But as I understand it, throughout the FCAC and throughout the Southern Fayetteville County region at least, no superintendents recommending against the DPH recommendation.
And what other sports are high risk? Is this the only one?
In the fall, this is the only one now. Volleyball was, but with the masks on in the gym, it brings it to moderate risk. They're looking at sports in the wintertime. I don't know exactly, but I've been hearing some about hockey, about basketball, about wrestling. But I don't know at this point, and I know DPH is looking through all of that.
Brendan and then Deanna.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's obviously very tough situation. And so, I feel for the kids not being able to play, what they know as football, but at the same time, totally supportive of following the DPH. And I think that's absolutely number one priority. We have to keep the kids' health in mind. And I'm glad that we're making a decision and that you and Jay have been working and others have been working behind the scenes to bring something forward, because I think it ultimately will be, great for the kids and they'll be able to really enjoy themselves. So, thanks.
Deanna?
So just one more question, and I think it's more for, the winter sports. If we could kind of look at those states that did, against DPH guidelines, have a football season and sort of get some kind of feel for what happened. Did they have big outbreaks? I think from a going forward, I think it's helpful for us to understand what happened in those states where they actually did have a season.
Glad to. And, I'll make the same suggestion to the Department of Public Health, and they may be able to get data from their colleagues in the other states and see what it looks like. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Jen?
So I'm just going to ask I just wanted to ask about the more of the COVID in the schools. And I know yesterday was a crazy day, and, again, you were ready and you had your plan, and that's so impressive. And I also want to just do another shout out to the teachers, because it's just incredible what they are doing, and just shows how passionate they are about what they do, and so much that they've done for our kids. So thank you to all the teachers out there. Just quickly about the dashboard, is that, I mean, you've sent so many amazing emails, but, and I just want to make sure, I know there's been some confusion, like, do people know that if their kids test positive, like, they need to immediately contact who? And the dashboard, like, has that been, like, and we said it tonight, but, like, I just found out about that as well, which is super helpful. So I just don't know how that's being communicated to the community in our schools.
Okay.
And also more the testing too, like about the rapid test versus the PCR. And I did see that, I think, in an email. But just, I know it's on that website, but has that like been pushed out in other formats?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jen, because one of the challenges is we all want to know every single thing we can know. There's such a thirst for information right now, because there's so many questions and so many unknowns. So we're trying hard to keep those communications open. We started the dashboard about a week ago. And we didn't know. I mean, at first we put it up and we had one, and it was one person, one teacher in quarantine at one of our elementary schools. Now it looks a lot different. So, but we figured we want to show how transparent we are with all of this. We want everyone to know that, we're just as things happen, we're going to communicate it, we're going to put it out there and make sure people can make informed decisions. We're going to continue continue the messaging about the importance to let us know of a positive case. And we say, who should they reach out to? They can reach out to their building nurse, their building principal, or to me. Every one of those emails goes out with a reply to address of me. So anyone can just click on it and let us know. And then we will contact them and begin the contact tracing. Essentially, when we learn about it, we notify the health department. And then together with the health department, we put a plan in place and we execute that plan. And so sometimes we have to reach out to third parties, like if it's in a club sport league or something like that, we may talk to the director or the coach. But it's a little investigation every time. And we try to track that down. So we'll continue urging people to tell us, because the only way to contain the spread is to identify the positive cases. We work backwards to see if we can find the source, and then we work to contain it so that it doesn't continue to spread. Now, when we look at these cases, we don't believe that any of the spread has occurred in our schools, because we look at where they're coming from and what the contact tracing is showing, and we also look at the mitigation strategies we have in our schools. So they're very, very strong and very good. So it appears that that's not where the spread is occurring. We know how active our kids are. I mean, this is a very active community, and there's a lot that kids do around school, before and after. So, we want to continue also messaging the importance, and you probably saw that sort of highlighted more in the last couple of messages that we've sent out, that the mitigation strategies don't just work in school, they work everywhere. So keep doing all of those things, and we'll stay as healthy as we can. But again, when somebody gets sick, it's not a shortcoming. It's not because they did anything wrong. And, that's come forward, let us know, and we'll work with them as much as we need to and as much as we can. Yeah.
So, and the kids that are told to quarantine, right? Like, let's say they were around one of the children that tested positive.
Yeah.
Are they quarantined for 2 solid weeks, or is it they get a negative PCR after X days?
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, that was the other part of your
Okay.
question. Sure. No, so right now, there is no way to test out of the quarantine after a close contact. So I know there's some different rules with the governor and what travel and all of that, and I think that just changed in the last couple of days. But in schools right now, there's no way to test out of the quarantine. So in part because the rules are such, so we work from the positive test. When we're notified of that, one of the questions we ask is when was the onset of symptoms? And then the date of the onset of symptoms, you work back 48 hours, and from there till the day you're having the conversation, that's where you do your contact tracing. So the quarantine really is from the date of last possible exposure. So from the notification, you may already be 5 days in, 6 days in, however it goes. So by the time somebody were to go and get the results from 2 PCR tests more than 24 hours apart, then you're really through the period of quarantine for the most part because of the way this works. And they're also, the tests are reliable, but there's also, it's in the environment, which is why you're quarantining, and the test is just a snapshot of that moment. So waiting the 14 days and quarantining the 14 days is still the most reliable way to do it. So schools, and this is, again, it's the drive to make sure that our schools isolate and contain as quickly as possible. Because I know it's a difficult situation for anyone in quarantine. I know that. And you know that, right? We know that. But doing that and using this process will, according to the research, everything else we're seeing, help us keep school open for the rest. And that's why we put in a system where we're live streaming those classrooms so that when those 55 kids that were quarantined today are home for the next, until October 1st or 2nd, depending upon the exposure, they're right there with their classes. So they can go home, they get right into it, and then the day they come back, they walk right in, and they've kept pace with everything else going on. So it's a challenging system for our teachers, I've got to say. They just are going above and beyond and really making this work. And they understand why it's so important, but it's hard. But they do it because they're so dedicated to our kids. And it provides for that kind of flexibility as needed.
Great, thank you. I just want to make a quick comment, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Kinney. I just want to, there's so much going on, but I do want to just acknowledge and celebrate the reopening of the K-4 programs this week. I know I've received many messages of gratitude and appreciation and excitement, and pictures of kids heading off today, and happy moms and dads. So thank you to all of those that made that happen. It just indicates the readiness of the district and the planning that went into place. And I also just want to thank the teachers at the high school, because the open house last week was so well done. I've heard so much positive feedback, and I think parents just appreciated the honesty and the insight into how challenging this is, and just a peek into how it works day to day for the teachers and their process in terms of doing live streaming and teaching in the classroom. And I certainly, in my own experience, learned a lot. So it was helpful and really, really well done. So thank you to all of those. So Dr. Keating.
So we'll go over the COVID expenses first, and then I'll hit on the statement of accounts, if that's okay. So we've been talking about COVID expenses for the last 2 months or so with regards to the non-lapsing account that the town had set up for us. And they had set up $400,000 for us to be able to react on scale, to be able to provide what was needed for resources for the schools. So as you take a look at the operational guide for COVID, you're going to see all the measures that were outlined for all the various areas of that plan. And then there's resources associated with them. And what we've tried to do is categorize those resources into the areas on the front page of the statement of accounts, which I've summarized for you. So we've looked at cleaning labor, PPE, technology, which has been a big expense for us, instructional supplies and equipment, cleaning supplies, and the category of other that didn't fit into that area. The last report I gave you was 2 weeks ago, and at that point we had spent $1,050,000, and today it's $1,324,000. The biggest item that's been added in there is the hire of 4 cleaning people. We have hired additional staff of 1 at Saks, additional staff of 1 at the high school, and 2 floaters. And the 2 floaters have been used consistently since the day they started. So that comes up to approximately $200,000. Those funds have been encumbered, and it's what has attributed to that increase in the cost. There's been some supplies, some additional barriers purchased to make up the balance. One of the things I wanted to note to you is that we have not encumbered all of the other salaries for the new hires for COVID-related services. And the reason why we haven't done that is because we are looking in September. September 15th was our first payroll at the turnover savings that we achieved based on additional turnover beyond what we had anticipated in the budget. So a portion of those salaries will be offset in part by turnover savings. We just are in the process of calculating. Our goal is to nail that down this week. One of the things we need to be aware of is that, so those salaries will be encumbered at some level, and we'll be reporting that out. but also that throughout the school year, we're going to need to replenish PPE, disinfectant chemicals. And then we really, from a variable perspective, don't know about our substitute staffing that we're going to need. And it's really going to be dependent on, the illness itself. And then stuff just like heating with the ventilation. We've accomplished a decrease of 15 to 20% in our buildings in the cost of heating. And that's a couple $100,000. Now with everything wide open, we can expect those bills to increase. It will depend on the weather and the type of winter we have, of course, but we can expect that those types of expenditures are going to increase. So our goal is to nail down the salaries this week, to get our arms around those numbers, to look at some good estimates on replenishing PPE, the disinfecting, and so forth, and then just identify the variables so that we can present a cohesive plan to the funding bodies in the next few weeks. We've talked to the Ed Resources Committee earlier today. I think we're in agreement that that's the good pathway to get before the boards in the next few weeks so that they really understand the scope of what we're looking for.
Brendan?
Thanks, Joanne. I just want to, highlight that, because of all these additional COVID expenses, we're essentially overspending our current year's budget by, around $1 million, and we're only 2 or 3 weeks into the school year. So it's absolutely critical that, that we get the money that we need from the town, which is essentially, as we've talked about, money that we didn't spend last year that's gone back to the town. So it's just, it's critically important that we go into the rest of the school year with all the amazing things that the school system's doing adequately funded. And if we're not adequately funded, we're not going to be able to do the things that we need to do to not only keep the kids healthy, but, educate them properly and do all the things that we need to do, frankly, that our town expects of us in any normal year. And this year, it's a heck of a lot harder to get all those things done. So it's really important. I want the town, the town bodies, but the town more broadly and parents to understand that it's really important that we get this support when we go to the town bodies over the next few weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Keating.
Okay. And just briefly on the statement of accounts, each year in September, we do present the statement of accounts through the end of August. When you take a look at the statement of accounts, keep in mind that the salaries are not encumbered yet. So all of our salaried employees need to be encumbered. Our major contracts, like for busing, software, and some of the facilities contracts haven't been encumbered. That's what we do in September after we've spent the summer closing out the prior year's books. So it's not unusual to see large balances at this time of year. But as we move into this, the end of September, that report, you're going to see things start to fall into place with regards to encumbrances.
Thank you. All right. So it's comments from the public. We're going to check and see if there's anybody who would like to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So no comments. Thank you. And finally, announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy, anything else to add?
Just very briefly, our next meeting will be October 5th. At that meeting, Dr. Susan Bliss, I believe, will be joining us to give us an update on emotional intelligence. You heard Jonathan mentioning that tonight, so we thought, often they've presented together because of the connection between the two disciplines, but we thought, given our desire to move through our meeting, that we'd split it up. So Susan will be here next time. We're also inviting some folks from the high school to come to talk about the block schedule a little bit, to We thought that early in the year, it would be good to just talk about what it is, why it is, how it's going. We're not going to have an awful lot of feedback on it at this point, but I thought it'd be good as a first, like a part A, to come in just to talk to the board about the structure and how it works and answer any questions you might have about the schedule itself. And then we'll look for another presentation as we move through the winter, probably in the early spring, to get feedback from our parents, our kids, our teachers, and others. But I thought that was something that you would find beneficial, just to understand when we say block schedule, what do we mean and how does it work? So we'll do that. And our next meeting, of course, is October 5th. Thanks.
All right, thank you. With that, motion to adjourn? Brendan, second. Julie, all in favor? All right,
All
thank
right.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice
And it
to
is-
see you all.